HWA Construction.
My name is David. I'm one of the founders of HWA Construction, also known as HWA Construction. So thank you guys for visiting. Thank you for, coming by.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. And then, obviously everybody's here to hear you have a conversation with me about, the art of thoughtful design, right? What's crazy is if you guys don't know David has started Assembledge almost 30 years ago in 1997. It's insane because I was born in 1996.
I'm out.
Sorry. But since then, he has truly changed the landscape of Los Angeles, even Canada. I think you were telling me you finished a project in Canada? Awesome. Bunch of them, awesome. And then, and then a lot of his projects were featured in a lot of architectural, publication, like Architectural Digest, the local projects, just to name a few. And also, Assemblage was selected to be participating in some of those case study adapt program, right? And for me, I'm literally just extremely grateful that I'm able to have a conversation with people who inspires me, and then also their relentless pursuit to push the boundaries in their craft. So in the next 30 minutes, I need to shout out my sponsors. Just kidding. In the next 30 minutes, I'll be asking David a few questions, and then we'll open up for Q&A, followed by about an hour of a social hour, okay? So let's get started from the beginning. What inspires you to be an architect in the first place?
What inspires me? I mean, I love the act of making. And I think in the world of making, in all of the different art forms there are out there, architecture is just such a next level of making because it requires a discipline. It has to, hit all and tick all these boxes in order for it to work. It has to stand up. It has to have code and have other consultants involved in it and a lot of other things that go into it. And then you're also trying to make that artful and poetic and so on. And so I think the parameters that are required in order for it to be successful make it a really incredible art form. And I also just love that it lasts for so long, or it has the potential to last so long.
And then the cool thing is being able to see how you work with clients at the very beginning, even through the schematic phases and the very, very early phases of everything, being able to give them different layouts, being able to give them different concepts, but then also guiding them in, here is the smartest direction you guys could take it, and then this is what you absolutely could do based off of their budget, based off of their design intent, how they live in the house, and then also being able to place the home on the property that maximizes all the amenities, views, and exposures and all of that stuff. So being able to see how he works and how he operates with his clients and see how his team operates at such a high level truly inspires me. So the question I really wanted to ask you, and I didn't send this to you, is, where is it? How do you manage client expectations while showing them what your vision for the project would be?
Well, managing client expectations is a big job because it's not just about the design, it's about so many other things that go into it. But I think the key to it, and the key to, in my opinion, success in that is communication, clear communication, trying to be really open and transparent with the conversation and get them involved in that early on so that they are a part of that dialogue. At the end of the day, they're coming to us for, our expertise and our knowledge and our sensibility, but we're also, we're shepherding them through this process, and they need somebody to kind of guide them through it, and that's what our job is. And so our job is also to collect the team members together that we think is going to be right fit for this, and getting all the the best people that we can to kind of make this project as successful as possible. So I do think communication is ultimately the biggest key to that, and that I think when you're clear and transparent with your communication, it makes them feel comfortable, and so then it allows you the freedom to kind of be able to do what we do, and then we build trust through that.
Clear communication, number one. Constant communication is really tough, especially when you're running multiple projects or there's a lot of stuff going on. But constant communication, clear communication, setting the right expectations of clients up front, right? That literally sets the tone for the entire project.
For sure.
Now, looking back at the early years, what experience and mentors has the greatest influence on your design philosophy and the practice you've built today?
Well, fortunately, or unfortunately, I don't know if this is the case, but fortunately, I've only worked under two architects before starting Assemblage. David Hertz from Synthesis and Lorcan O'Herlihy. But really going way back, probably the greatest mentor I ever had was my father, Richard Thompson, who is also an architect. He had a prolific career for over 50 years and did incredible stuff. And he really taught me, more, not so much more about architecture, but more about what is important about being a human, and that architecture is really about human interaction first and foremost. And he taught me how to be a good father, a good husband, a good boss, a good architect, all of those things. So I really owe so much to him. But then in the workforce, David Hertz, my first job out of school, I came out of Tulane in '91.
There's a lot of Davids in this industry.
Yes. So I came out of architecture school in '91, and we weren't working in computers at that time. Everything was done by hand, and so I got really interested in furniture making because it changed the scale of architecture into something that I could almost hold in my hands. And so it really helped me to kind of understand scale and how to draw and understand how to design through the act of making. And so my first job with David, he had a product called Syndicrete, which was a lightweight concrete that we used for countertops and floor tiles and furniture and stuff. So I was really involved in all the design work for that, but I was also out in the field, like field measuring and making templates and doing the shop drawings and taking it all the way through fabrication and installation. And I really learned a lot about the act of making. And at that time, I also sort of got my entrepreneurial spirits sparked by, I started getting my first commission. I started doing furniture commissions, and that's really where I thought Assemblage was going to go. And then I took Assemblage to New York for a few years, and we did a bunch of projects in Manhattan. And then I came back to LA.
How many years? How many years in New York?
I was in Manhattan for like 3 or 4 years back in right in the millennium, like right around 2000. And then I came back to LA around 2001, and I was kind of burnt from running my own practice. And I was like, I'm going to go try and get a job. I'm going to see what that looks like. So I polished up my resume and I sent it out, and I started getting some real interest from a lot of people. And then I had done some work with Lorcan O'Herlihy before I left for New York. And so he called me up and he was like, DT, I need someone like you, but I can't afford you. What if I hire Assemblage? And I'll kick you referrals for projects that are too small, and just you help me build my practice, I'll help you build yours. So that's probably the most prolific thing that ever happened in my career. And I was all in. And so I ran his firm for like 6 years, running Assemblage on the side. I never worked harder in my life. And then I left Lorcan's and put my head down to do Assemblage, and here we are 25 years later.
And then when designing a home, how do you think about balancing bold architectural ideas and creating a place that's comfortable, functional, and built for everyday family living?
Well, I think it's a bold endeavor just to build a house in general. So, but, I don't don't necessarily know that, architecture is ultimately about the people and the experience inside of it first. And, we want that to be what is sort of driving everything. But, architecture is about the experience of space, and it becomes the backdrop for life that is happening in it. And that's really when I think architecture comes alive, is when the life is in it. We don't want our architecture to be the only thing that is looked at. We want almost that architecture to become, a subtle experience behind the life that's happening inside of it. So I think that the two things can totally coexist together.
Yeah, it's like when the family moves in and they're like, wow, the person built it, the person who designed it really understood who I am and then how I live. So like you have a whole process of discovering and getting to know your clients, right?
Everybody knows what living in a house is like, and there's all the ingredients in a house are pretty similar for everybody, but everybody has different ways in which they live, and it's important that we want to understand what's important to them and their houses and what makes their life unique, so that we can then take that in, put that into our architectural cauldron and mix it up and make something unique for them.
So what is the craziest ask that you've gotten asked that you had to design around?
To build for $300 a square foot.
Unrealistic price. Yep. Okay, so where do you, think the line is between architecture as a work of art and a home that truly feels lived in?
Well, I think the really great architecture blurs that line. At the end of the day, as architects, we have to be really pragmatic, and we have to do all of these things. And like I had said before, these boxes have to get checked off, and all these things that have to happen in order for it to exist. But then, we're also tasked with making that poetic. And so I think the two can totally exist together and should exist together. And but I do truly believe that the architecture becomes art when the life comes into it, when the people come into it. So, and so being lived in is really when the architecture comes alive to me. And so I think that the line is really blurred there between.
So how is that like when you start designing your own house?
Oh, well, that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, in fact, that's, in some ways, so the Laurel Hills residence, which you saw, is my house, and is probably the greatest project and the craziest project in the sense that it's super fulfilling, and it's awesome to be living in it and to be seeing the cycles of the sun and the days and the Los Angeles seasons, if you will. But it was also during the design process, it was something I couldn't put down. I guess could never put it down. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I mean, that's true, I think, for any of the architects in the room. I think we all know that like you don't turn design off and on. It just kind of exists all the time. It's the disease that we have. And to some degree, that's what I truly love about it. But in my own house, it was also that thing that I like literally couldn't put down. And we were living in the property at the time, and I would like be working late on the project, and I'd go to sleep, and I'd be thinking I wake up, and I'm dreaming about it in the space. It was really bizarre.
Wait, so you lived in the house while you were building the house?
No, we lived on the property before we tore it down.
So residential project requires like close collaborations between architects, interior designers, contractors, and homeowners. How do you approach that partnership to ensure the original design vision is carried throughout construction?
Well, collaboration is really in our ethos. That's, even it's inherent in the name assemblage. It's about assembling materials and consultants and clients and budgets and materials and all these things together at a high level of design. And we can't and don't believe that we can do that on our own. And I believe very much so in the art of collaboration. We don't design in a vacuum. We need good contractors, we need good consultants, we need good clients, we need people all a part of this vision to make it happen and be successful. And we have a great example of that right now. I mean, we're working on our first project in Altadena, our first fire rebuild clients. We're working with HWA and David and his team to, they're our first clients. We got them very early on and after the fire, and they've put a lot of trust into us. And we started the process by a real collaborative process of working with them to execute a design, execute it on budget, and that is proving to be successful. We're about to break ground on it. We're really excited about it, and I think the reason that it's gotten to this point is because of that collaboration that we all bought into in the beginning of the process.
And like you're saying, it's the constant communication all throughout this process, because imagine you're waiting, like it's your first time building a house and you're waiting in permitting for like the longest time. And if you haven't heard from your team, you haven't heard from the people you've hired, you're probably, as a client, your mind starts wandering and you're probably thinking, dang, where are they? What are they doing? Right? Yeah.
In our world, if you think about it, our clients hire us and our deliverable is a set of drawings they can't read. It's a real mind bender for them, I think.
For someone who's planning to build their first custom home or major renovation, what advice would you give when choosing the architect and contractor to build the right team?
Well, my first advice would be hire assemblage. I mean, that's an easy one. I think the team is really important. So my advice would be that one, you have to obviously admire and like the work that they do, and but you also want to feel comfortable with these people. You want to feel a good vibe. You want to feel like they're good communicators and things like that, so that you feel safe in this process, because it's a long process. There's a lot of decisions to be made. It's a long road, and so we do a lot to instill confidence in our clients that we're guiding them properly, and so it's important. Obviously, it's important to love the work that they do, and the teams are able to execute the kind of design that you're looking for, or the sensibility you're looking for. But you're building a relationship in these processes. It's not a sprint. It's a journey, and these processes are not short. And anybody who's telling you that they are is not being honest with you. And so you want somebody that you can go on a journey with and be on a journey with for a while and feel that they're going to have your back, and they're going to be trying to keep as much, trying to guide you as best they can to make sure they're help manage your expectations of what to expect on this process. Because before anything is put down on paper, it's just a bunch of conversation. And it's not until you start defining the process do you really know what you're in for. And at every stage, that's when you get more informed. We all get closer to the goal, but it's an incremental process, and you want to trust those people that you're on the journey with.
Yeah, and then like for clients, it's like they have to learn the process of building, so we're educators, right? And then on top of that, when we're able to instill constant communication, instilling confidence in them, when they start getting like decision fatigue and they know that they have a team that they can trust, that's when you have a smooth building process. But if they absolutely are unsure whether or not you're able to deliver what you're promising or deliver what the plan set is saying, then that's when you have a huge issue. So could you share a bit about your design process for a project like your house at Laurel Hill or the Rustic Canyon project?
Our design process is pretty similar in every project. As I said before, it's a lot of listening to our clients, learning about what is important to them. But it's also listening to the site. It's listening to the other things that are the other team members that are involved and things like that. But the site is obviously the first thing. And the site, if you listen hard enough, I think the site tells you what it needs and wants. And so that's, early processes is where we're looking to site the building and stuff like that. And it's very evident in our project for in Altadena for Gary and Julia. That was driven solely by pushing the building further back on the site to get the views of Eaton Canyon. And I think when that moment for them, when they realized that, it was like, an aha moment for them. But it's, the constant listening and then moving through that process of what the site tells you to do, and then the architecture sort of starts to reveal itself. For us, we really look, our projects are so much about indoor-outdoor living and taking advantage of Southern California lifestyle, where we can be outside 365 days a year. So we often try to take ourselves out of the parameters of the 4,000 square foot house or whatever the size house is, and really look to the site, like how big is the site and how can we extend the living experience out into the environment. So that's a huge part of what, is sort of a common thread in all of our work. And in my house, again, it was really unique because, we're the clients. So I had to listen to my wife a lot, which was, and
She's the client.
She's the client, and she's my greatest client by far, and the greatest patron of our work for sure. And she believes in us, and she also trusted me to do this. And so it's definitely unique when you're doing it for yourself. And then the Rustic Canyon house was, very different, and that was like a major collaboration with us and Jamie Bush and company. We worked with Jamie Bush, and it was a fantastic project. He and I he's not only is he an amazing interior designer, but he's also like an old friend of mine from college, so we've known each other for many years. So getting to do that together was a really incredible opportunity, but I think that really worked well because there was a lot of trust, and a lot of freedom. We gave him the room to do what they do, and he gave us the room to do what we do, and that the result is what you see there. So, these are pretty common threads in the way we work on all of our projects. But I would come back to the point of it is a lot of listening to our clients, hearing what living in a home is for them, and then being able to take that language and put it into architectural vernacular because they don't know how to speak that language.
So last question. What excites you the most about the future of residential architecture in Los Angeles?
I think the last couple of years have been really challenging in this community. I mean, we've lost a lot. I'm hopeful, and I believe that what we've got is a new way of, approaching projects with collaboration, different alternative kinds of ways of thinking and approaching projects. So I'm really optimistic that that's going to create some really interesting responses to what building these communities back is like. And I'm optimistic that people are starting to believe more in the value of thought in architecture. And what I mean by that is that, if you value thought, then you want people like myself to think about these projects. And I believe that thinking about these projects is how we solve problems, how we keep things in budget, how we work these projects out. And I think people are getting a better sense of how important that value is. When we spend time thinking about these projects up front, it's how we control budgets, control timelines, and things like that. And I think that there's people that are understanding that value more. And so I'm optimistic about that. And I think there's a lot of really incredible technologies that we have going on right now. I mean, I know everybody's frightened about AI, but I think it offers us a lot of opportunities to to free us up to be able to spend more time thinking about architecture and being creative, and maybe start to kind of break up some of the monotony of some of the mundane things that we have to do. So I'm optimistic about that. I'm really optimistic about some of the other kinds of technologies like AR and VR and MR, and I think those things are going to be really interesting to see both in the architecture world and the construction world. So I'm optimistic about that. And I believe that the more people that are believing that architecture is valuable, I think architecture has such an incredible opportunity to make our lives better and raise our human spirit and all that. And so I think that the more that we talk about it and get together in events like this and talk about architecture, the more people that are knowledgeable about it, the more people that understand that it's got a great value in it, and you're in it everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, you're surrounded by it. And so all the times you can see the things that are good and the things that are bad. And so the more people that value that, I think we just are closer to having a better built environment, and we can build our communities back better and our housing back better. And just, I believe that'll be better for humanity.
You guys have questions?
Yeah, I just had a question. I know that you mentioned that you have been and probably continuously build on your house for your wife. What is her favorite part of your house?
I think, one is watching my family live in it, because I can see the sort of subtleties of the them experiencing the natural light and all of that stuff, and they don't really kind of know it's happening. So I kind of know it's happening, and I know they're being inspired by it. So that's one thing. But I love watching the light move through it during the days and things like that. I love, the whole house opens up and completely opens up, and when you're in it on a beautiful day and there's kind of breezes are coming through it and you're really not quite sure where indoor, outdoor is. Those are things that I love, and it's part of the magic of the place.
Whenever you're consulting with a client, is there any subtle design motifs that are kind of a non-negotiable to you that kind of leaves your signature on the project?
I don't have one signature. I think the sensibility itself is a signature. So I'm not looking for one little thing. I think it's kind of getting them to often our clients are first-time builders, have never done this before. So some of it is shepherding them through this and, kind of easing them into it. And I don't like to think of our work as being anything specifically signature. I do think there's a commonality and a thread that goes through our work that I hope that when you see our work, you can kind of see that. But I don't necessarily think there's something specifically signature about it, and so I don't know that I'm trying to lay down something like that. I think it's more of just trying to get them to. Often it's sort of buying into the hey, we live outside, we can live outside, and let's take advantage of that. And what does that look like to you? And I think that's, if anything, is probably the signature of trying to get this integrated indoor-outdoor living.
So how long does the discovery process usually take? And on average, before you have plans and then you're bringing in a contractor? And then are you also architecture desigin firm or just architect?
When you say design, you mean interior design?
Yeah. At what point do you bring in the interior design?
Well, we like to have the team together at the very beginning if that's possible, and that's not always possible, or it doesn't always happen that way. But we do the architecture, we do the interior architecture, we do the site planning, we do early landscape design, but we're not landscape designers. But we do try to look at the projects from a holistic vantage point that way. As I said previously, we like bringing contractors in as early as we can. We don't necessarily want to bring them in before we have pen to paper, But we do want to start bringing them in early on. We have a new project in Palm Springs that we're working on, and we're starting to interview contractors within the first couple of weeks that we've been involved. So it just depends. But the process, there isn't a set time of how long that takes, but often our early schematic design phases take anywhere from a month or two. It depends on a lot of different factors. It depends on what's going on that particular project. If there's parameters that are sort of a part of the jurisdictional roadmap of that project that we have to navigate before we can really dig in. But like I said, and I'm only thinking of it because it's a brand new project of ours, but we got signed up 2 weeks ago on this Palm Springs project, and we're already got a floor plan approved and so on. So it's happening pretty quickly, but that's also because that's what the clients are prepared for. They've done this before. This isn't a new process for them. So there's a lot of different ingredients that kind of go into making that process work either as quickly or as slowly as it may work. And we want to give the process what it deserves and what it needs. So it just depends. I think it is, but it depends on how far you want that to go. And so some of that has to do with how far the clients want that to go, because it does have to kind of be at the root and core of the project goal from the beginning. We try and make our projects as passive as they can be and as our clients will let us. But sometimes that also is not, as when you're in really heavy urban environments, it's not so easy to do. When you don't have real control to site your building, and orient it, completely orient it or change the orientation for solar paths and things like that. So sometimes you might get, if you're in a tight urban environment, you might not have some of those opportunities to make it completely passive. So we try and make them as passive as we can and as far as our clients will let us. We certainly, advocate for that as much as possible. We want our buildings to be, have as small a footprint as they can on the environment.
When you're referring your clients to a contractor or builder, what are some qualities that you trust over another contractor or builder when you're referring them?
First we want to see a body of work and what that work looks like, and what capabilities there are. But like I said earlier, communication and how we feel about the dialogue with somebody. I'm a pretty good judge of character, and so I can kind of get a vibe from people early on, and that's some of it. We want to feel as though we're partners in this, that we all have a common goal, and the end goal is to build something beautiful and all march along the process together as smoothly as we can and try and manage expectations for everybody through that process. So a lot of it is just, some gut check of just feeling like, these guys feel good. Obviously they want to have the body of work that can kind of show that you can execute. But a lot of it is vibe.
You spoke about, you have a lot of first-time home builders, and how early on you must talk about budget. I'm just curious how you talk about budget and how do you...
Very carefully.
Yeah, but you could be designing and doing schematic, but there's a reality check. So there's the design, there's the building, there's the furnishing. How do you explain you may have a beautiful house, but now you have to, it's not cheap to do area rugs and window coverings. How do you talk to them about that?
Part of it is that we build relationships with builders early on, but we start our processes over the years. I've sort of developed a sort of development spreadsheet that I build when I start first talking to clients to kind of break down the development project into kind of 4 buckets. Hard costs, consultant costs, soft costs, and then now certainly, not always with our clients, but then furniture costs and stuff like that to sort of, and I tell them, like, this is not a budget. This is a development budget. It's not a bid. We're putting these numbers together just so that we can start to talk about where the money goes in these projects. And then, we use our knowledge of construction to sort of say cost per square foot on buildings. But one thing we try and do is that, people come to us about, well, we can build. We've heard we can build for X amount per square foot, and my first question is, well, what does that include? Because generally, you could have like 5 different explanations about what dollar per square foot means. And so what we try and do is distill that down so that we can understand really what we're talking about per square foot for the building. What are we talking about for the site work? And what are we talking about for the overall development or whatever it is that we need to do? We're trying to break that down. So in the early conversations, we're trying to get the process to be as transparent as possible, and also not promising anything. Because I can tell you we can build for something, but until we've designed something, I don't know what it's going to cost. And I don't profess to know that until we've designed something. We've got a lot of experience building, many years of experience building, but I'm not a builder. I'm an architect. And so that is also why I encourage our clients very early on to start building these relationships with builders. And it's a little non-traditional because typically what we do is we design, we bid, and then we build. That's a traditional path through the architectural process. And what we're trying to do is say to clients like, hey, let's pick a builder now. And they're like, what? Aren't I supposed to get like 3 bids to compare them against each other? And yeah, I understand that, but also we want that input during the process. If I say we can build for X amount per square foot, I got to design to that. And so I need support from the people that are going to execute that with us so that we can, because the design is an evolution, right? We have a first idea, and then that idea evolves all the way through the process. And so the more input we can get, then we know how it needs to evolve, and then we can hang on to the things that we think are really important and understand where we need to balance that if and always is budget is part of the conversation. So we try and just make that conversation really as transparent, and so that I try to make my clients feel as though we're taking these incremental steps forward together.
But how do you stay motivated and inspired when you're working with a client that just ends up being kind of like a dog client, or the project like starts really great and then it like goes in a different direction, or the client thinks that they're just going to rely on you, and then all of a sudden like they're picking everything and it's not meshing well? And how do you kind of like regroup them or regain kind of that to make it so that it really does flow and becomes like a beautiful property?
Fortunately, not that I haven't had, difficult clients. Our clients, I've been doing this long enough that we've, people are coming to us for what we're doing, and they trust us. So, when we feel like a project is kind of moving in the wrong direction, which fortunately isn't often, we try and make them part of the process. We don't try to alienate them, for sure. I don't want to make, we want their voices to be heard too. We want them to know that we speak the language better than they do. So what we want to try and do is get them to interpret what they're saying and then let us create that into architectural vernacular. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but I think it's trying to kind of keep control of that process as we're going as much as possible. And, there has been plenty of times where this isn't working, and that's happened too. Fortunately, not a lot, but there has been times where it's not a right fit, and it's got to be okay to be able to know when that's right, and we want our clients to trust us. You're coming to us for a reason, you're coming to us, and you got to trust us, and this is what I was saying earlier, is that I'm hoping that there are more people that understand the value of what we've done. I've been doing this for a long time, and so I've had a lot of experience, and that's what makes me good now, is that all of the years of things that I've tried and executed and done, and that's valuable. And I'm constantly trying to instill the value of that thought and let us think about it. I promise you, if you let us think about it, it will come back to you. It will be valuable financially, it'll be valuable to you in the quality of the product. I promise it. I know it. And because that's what we do. That's what we've spent a career, all the people in my office, all the talented people that I surround myself with. We've all spent a career and a lifetime developing this thought. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but
I'm really curious, when you think of kind of the currents or tides within the world of design and architecture, we'll stick to residential. I'm curious, what would you say gives you the most hope? And then I'm also interested on the flip side, just what would you find most discouraging that's out there right now?
Well, I can tell you that I think the thing that is most discouraging is just the cost of construction. It's just really expensive. And I don't believe that good design is only for the elite. So I think that's the part that's the most frustrating, is just that it's just so expensive to build. And so, often what happens is that a lot of times there's a lot of cuts that people do, and what they often cut is the architect. And I come back to that point of the value of thought. When you don't have somebody thinking about it, it's probably not going to be that good. So that part is really discouraging, and I don't know what the solution is for that. I really don't. But I think some of the things that I'm hopeful for is I do think that we've got a lot of really incredible opportunities and technologies that I think are going to hopefully allow us more time for good thought on these projects. And I think the technology can help us and not hurt us. And so I'm optimistic that there's a lot of really incredible opportunities. I think there's opportunities for real bad stuff to come out of that as well. But I'm optimistic that a firm like mine might be able to do some really exciting things with all of this technology that we have out there that we might not have been able to do before, or was much more challenging to do. But that comes back into just the cost of construction too, which I think is just our greatest challenge.
Yeah. At least the tech oligarchs are going to need lots of homes,
Yes. Yeah. And right now I think the most hope I have is that I hope that the opportunity of rebuilding these communities like Altadena and Palisades offer some really incredible solutions. There's so many talented architects in this town, and I really believe that there's going to be some really amazing solutions and really incredible stuff that comes out of that, and that I think will be incredible for the future of these communities. So I do believe that there's some really exciting stuff to come with that.
Just to add on to that, hire your architect for construction administration, because if you don't do that and you give clients the opportunity to decide when budget or whatever like that pops up in construction, you're probably going to end up with a completely different product.
Well, West Coast is where it's at for sure, but I had a short run in New York. I thought I was going to go there and get a job, and then opened my practice there, and I got a job on the drive out. So I hit the ground running there. We did a lot of really great work. A lot of it was interior work. It wasn't, anything that we were doing that was ground up or even really much exterior work. So the sensibility is very different. It's hard. It's hard enough to do building, and it's hard to do it in this town. It's hard to do it anywhere. It's really hard to do it in Manhattan, like really hard. It's just the logistics of construction in Manhattan is insane. There are line items and bids for the doorman to pay them off in order to use the elevator when you need it. Things like that, and just the hours in the day are cut by like 20% because of just getting in and out of the buildings. So everything is just a lot harder and a lot more difficult. But it was fun. It was fun to explore, and and the fact that we were able to come and sort of do it, and I had an office in Hell's Kitchen, and it was cool. We did a bunch of really fun, exciting projects, and I don't regret a minute of it. But the quality of life here in the West and Los Angeles is not even remotely. You can't compare them, and I also think the landscape here allows for such a innovative thinking in architecture here, and I think it's really special here, and I love practicing here. It's great. But I would do we do projects all over the place. We're doing projects in Hawaii. We're doing projects in Ohio, Canada, all over the country and other parts of the world. And the technology component has allowed us to do things in other jurisdictions and other places. So, we love bringing our West Coast sensibility to other parts of the world and the U.S. So,
Can we give a round of applause to both Davids? What an awesome conversation. I just want to thank you, David, for sharing just what it takes to build a quality project in LA. What I took is the art of collaboration and being a team for a project. So we're going to transition to our social hour. Again, the art of collaboration. If you haven't met someone in the room, there's great people in this room. So help yourself to some drinks, charcuterie, and for the next hour, we'll be socializing and mingling. Thank you.